Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Let's turn now to the drama in Washington, D.C. all this weekend, certainly today. That is the attempt to fund the government before the deadline hits at midnight on Saturday, after which the government will shut down. The latest is that a House stopgap bill failed to pass on Friday. The vote included 21 Republicans helping Democrats oppose the bill. Kim, what is the latest from your perspective, and are we likely headed now toward a government shutdown?
The latest is that the clown car rolls on. Just to put this in perspective so everyone understands what's happening. As you said, government funding shuts down Saturday night. There have been a group of Republican hardliners who are opposed to continuing resolutions. They don't like the idea of them. And in fairness, they feel as though it kicks the can down the road, and then you get closer and closer to the end of the year. And then suddenly everyone says, let's just do an omnibus, and tons of spending happens. And they want very much to have regular order in the appropriations process. That's fine. Only the House has dawdled, and so many of the very same people that oppose continuing resolutions have also been opposing getting some of those spending bills across the finish line because they weren't getting their ways and all the spending decisions that were made in those bills. So those remain bottled up. They haven't really passed. They did pass a few of them this week, but the vast majority of them have not been passed. And government funding's running out. So Kevin McCarthy, trying to get everyone on board, put together a very short continuing resolution. It would have only been for a month. He also included all kinds of provisions in it, like a new debt commission and new provisions for the border and yet further spending cuts. Even then, as you note, 21 Republicans voted against it. At the same time, many of those same Republicans are saying that they will oppose a continuing resolution that is likely coming to them from the Senate, which would keep government running for another 47 days, but also includes some about $12 billion in funding for Ukraine and for disaster relief. So there's no real vehicle right now to keep government open past midnight tomorrow night. The latest, just to let you know, is under pressure. There is some discussion in the House right now of passing a completely clean bill that would do a CR for a week with the notion that maybe you could get a few more of those spending bills done. And in fact, it almost looks as though maybe there's some gelling around this idea of doing week by week CRs to give the House more time to get stuff done. That would be a change from some of the hardliners' position, but it seems to be an acknowledgement by some Republicans that there is no good headlines that will come out of this and no good scenario if they get landed with responsibility for shutdown on Sunday.
But that's the trouble, given where we find ourselves now, only hours from the shutdown. Do you have a sense of what the no votes actually want? Do they have a better plan than McCarthy's? I understand that what they want is regular order, but when you find yourself without the time to pass the appropriations bills by regular order, then you have a choice of some sort of stopgap or shutting down the government. And I don't see how the latter of those is a winner for any Republicans, including the people who are voting no on it.
Well, that's the problem. And the thing that is just so amazing about this is that let's take the hardliners at their word, that they are deeply concerned about the level of spending and they want to see even deeper cuts than what was negotiated as part of the debt ceiling deal between Kevin McCarthy and the White House at the end of May and the beginning of June. Okay, if that is your goal, then the best strategy Republicans have is to pass each of those 12 appropriations bills in the House, bring them in at levels on domestic discretionary spending that are lower than the debt ceiling deal, go to conference with the Senate, which is itself passing various appropriations bills, negotiate a compromise, and you're therefore going to get something lower than the debt ceiling agreement. Now, that's the leverage Republicans have. When they have unity, when they stick together, they can extract some concessions because remember, they only own one chamber of one branch of government. Democrats hold the Senate, Democrats hold the White House. They're not going to get their their way on everything. I mean, they can hold their breath until they pass out, but that's not going to help anything. So I appreciate that many of them don't like the idea of incremental change, but the power reality at the moment is that that is the best that they can hope for, other than a shutdown and essentially proving that they have no ability to govern. So there's the smart strategy or there's the grandstanding. And, Kyle, to answer your question, that is what's going on here with a handful of members, the Matt Gaetzes of the world. They want to act as though they're the only righteous people, that they are standing on principle. In reality, they are spoiling Republican chances of getting something done. And they're mostly doing it because they like the headlines. And in a normal conference, it wouldn't matter much because you have a 20-vote majority. You can ignore those guys. But when you have a 4-vote majority, which is what McCarthy has at the moment, it only takes 4 grandstanders to derail the entire caucus.
The effect of a shutdown, if it is short, it might not be noticed by many Americans, though the Biden administration is saying today that in the event that government funding runs out, it will close national parks. There is some evidence that states are going to step up to fill that gap. So apparently Arizona and Utah have said they would provide funding for the national parks in those states to stay open, and maybe other states will join them. Also interesting, Alicia, there's a journal story on this that says that President Trump kept national parks open when there was government shutdowns under him, the Interior Department using fees in order to conduct basic operations, though there was short-staffed and some backlogs of maintenance and trash and stuff piled up while the government was closed. Apparently there was a legal opinion then by the Government Accountability Office that suggested that that was not in accordance with the law on what is supposed to happen with shutdowns. But I guess the advice is keep on your toes if you're intending to visit a national park here the next few days. But if this shutdown drags out, that is when I think you will start to see the pain hitting government employees if they're missing paychecks and so forth. And that is when the political pressure will really build.
Right. I mean, the question is how much pressure or how much pain does the Biden administration want the public to feel to basically force Republicans back to the negotiating table and to agree to some kind of short-term funding or authorization bills on Democratic terms. Back in the Obama administration, they did try to actually, shut down the national parks explicitly for that goal, to make the public feel pain, to bring pressure to bear on the Republicans. I think maybe Trump administration tried to at least mitigate the pain so that the Republicans wouldn't get blamed. I recall hilariously receiving a call during the government shutdown from someone claiming to be from the CDC, doing research on concussions and wanting to, survey my opinions or knowledge. I'm like, is this really an essential function? But during the government shutdowns, things that are labeled essential or essential employees, essential functions, the air traffic control, anything related to public safety will continue, despite what the administration is now kind of warning about horrific consequences for public safety. It is required to maintain these operations in order to protect public safety. So I think the Biden administration is trying to also fearmonger a little bit.
Thank you, Alicia and Kim. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back next week with another edition of Potomac Watch.